the Book of Brilliance, the essential Kabbalistic text that was written at the end of the 13th century. For reasons we don't understand, the entire system of the Sfirot, the attributes of God, as they're described by the Kabbalists, have essentially a very sexual foundation. But we start really with, I want to start with the basic premise of the Kabbalah. Basic premise of the Kabbalah is that this planet was created from love, or what is called chesed in the Kabbalistic system. And the teaching is that many planets were created and destroyed before planet Earth. In that respect, the Kabbalah is very much aligned with the Big Bang Theory. There were all of these other planets which were either destroyed or self-combusted, so to speak. And according to the sages, the reason those planets did not survive was because the deity still was holding the attribute of judgment, what we call in Hebrew gevura or din. It's the attribute that's represented by the red circle on the banner there. And so even God's focus, if not completely aligned with love, had some disastrous consequences. There are many adjectives in Hebrew for describing God's love of the world and God's love not just of humanity, but of all of the creatures. So when we do the liturgy, we talk about, in Hebrew, ahava rabbah, a great love. And we also have a prayer in which we talk about ahavat olam, which is translated as either the love of the world or the eternal love. And another term that's less well known is chesed elyon, which means the everlasting and faithful love of God. And when we describe the deity, usually you do this in the High Holidays liturgy based on the language of Moses, we say Adonai Adonai El Rachum V'Chanun, God is compassionate and forgiving, with tremendous patience and with love and with truth, that God forgives everything and brings love for thousands of generations. That those are the attributes that we associate with the divine. The Zohar takes it a little bit further and makes it very tangible. And it says that underneath the throne of glory, where the deity sits, is a chamber of love. And in that chamber of love are stored all of God's kisses. And so the teaching is that every night when we dream, that the soul travels in its night journey, and that we ascend to the throne of glory and we play with God. That we are God's playthings or God's treasures, so to speak. I was thinking as a takeoff on at play in the fields of the Lord, this is at play in the palace of the Lord. And of course, that would cover us before birth and after death. Those of you who have been around me when we talked about the upper mother, the supernal mother, Bina, that is the treasure house of souls, where all the souls are stored before birth and to which return after death. And so, in a sense, that is also a place where the soul can be, again, the delight of God. So the expression of God's love is in this quality of kisses. And I wanted to read to you an adaptation of the Zohar by Rabbi Jerry Winston. It's called Soul Kissing. And it's based on the Song of Songs, Let Him Kiss Me with the Kisses of His Mouth. Yishakeni ben Shikot Pihu. You know that the whole Song of Songs is seen by both Jews, Christians, and probably Muslims too as this allegory of the soul's infatuation with God. He says, the mouth is the well of the spirit. Hence one should use it thoughtfully in the words one speaks, in the food one eats, and in the kisses one gives. The mouth is the well of the spirit, for it is through the mouth that the breath flows. And the Hebrew language uses the same word for breath and spirit, neshama, neshima. When one mouth touches another in a kiss, two spirits come together, cleave to each other, and become one in love. There is no love, no ecstasy, that can compare to the coupling of two spirits coming together. When a kiss is given in love, the kiss expands in 4 directions and gathers up the 4-letter name of God, the Tetragrammaton, and those 4 letters swallow up any sadness and leave only joy in its place. When through a kiss 2 spirits come together in love and become one, the 4 letters join together in a perfect whole, and a new spirit is born. The spirit soars to the highest heavens to make its way to the king's palace, where at the center of the garden stands the fountain of love. This is another metaphor. Instead of this palace where there are kisses, this is a fountain of love. And in the midst of the flowing fountain, there is concealed a light whose brightness shines along a narrow path extending outward. And though the light itself remains veiled by the waters, its brightness is so great as to illumine everything in its path, and this light is the point at which all life begins. God's love is expressed, of course, through the creation of the world, through miracles and liberation, through the diversity of creatures, through the fact that we're sustained, that everything on earth is fed and sustained, and through the beauty of nature, and also through the fact that the divine presence lives in us and through us. So what the Torah says is, Ta'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. If you create the sanctuary for me, I will live inside of you. I will live around you. I will live among you. It's also the idea that God's expression of love, particularly for humanity, but for all creatures, is bestowing, so to speak, the divine presence on us in such a way that we can experience the light of God through our bodies. What the whole message is about how to constantly feel the spiritual through the physical, how not to put down the physical. And Judaism has another additional slant on it, because a lot of our prayers talk about God's love for Israel. So the Jewish slant is that God's love is also in the giving of wisdom and law, in the giving of the Torah, that we have a guideline, a map. We have a spiritual map quest for how to live, and also in the giving of the Shabbat and the holy days and the new moon and the full moon, so that we have opportunities to take breaks in what we're doing and again deepen our experience of the divine presence. This is obviously a two-way street, because just as there is idealization of how God loves us, there is also the issue of how do we love God. We say in our daily prayers that we want to love God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our faculties. That's kind of the basic mantra. And the Zohar takes it a little further, and it says that 2 things. It says that service with love is the truest love of God. And the second component is the acceptance of all that is. That when we can be at peace with what is going on in our lives, whether it brings challenge or whether it brings happiness, whether it brings good health or whether it brings issues that we have to deal with in our health, that the true lover of God is capable, or at least in the effort, to surround all of their experience with acceptance. When you're in the holy atmosphere, it's like everyone you encounter is the beloved. Everyone who comes towards you comes with so much love. Could I take down whatever defenses I have and not be defensive, or not be irritated, not be critical, not be judgmental? I find it a lot harder with people than with plants. Much harder. A Hasidic teacher says that if you are a true lover of God, then your love is in an unlimited container. It's in an infinite position. and therefore your love can overflow to everyone and everything. But if your love is fixated only on a person or a piece of art or a piece of sculpture, an object, then he says that your love has a definition, it has a boundary, and you may or may not be able to extend it then to other beings and other objects, whereas the love of God is totally unlimited and unconditional. So if we can find the love of God in ourselves, then we will be able to bring it out to everyone and everything we encounter with. So where does sexuality come in? Now, because obviously our interaction with the divine is not what we would call conventionally erotic. However, in the Jewish system, the creation is inherently erotic. So, if you look at the Kabbalistic molecule, the basic chart has, and if you look at the banner, has the white light of God, and sometimes I portray it with a little tiny bit of gold in it to encompass the crown, the Keter, the crown chakra, that the white light of God, for reasons we don't understand, came down in some kind of like laser beam of light and began this process of unfolding into what we call the Sfirot. They have some connection, some relation to the chakras, but not 100%. And these are supposed to be like vessels that were designed to encompass the attributes of God. The first two attributes of God, after Keter, the crown chakra, are called Chokhmah, or wisdom, and Bina, or understanding. And these are the supernal mother and the supernal father on the right, the supernal mother on the left, and they would be like the sky father, Avinu Shabashamayim, our Father in heaven, Avundi B'Shemaya in Aramaic. We think of our father, our grandfather, at the heavenly level. It's up there in Chokhmah. Chokhmah is supposed to contain the entire template of the universe, the whole design. And again, this is it's an interesting system because it's saying this is the divine, but it's obviously a human projection onto the divine. Here's this essentially masculine energy that has fire for structure, and then there's a feminine structure that's like the womb of the world and is able to manifest form. So what is the Kabbalistic teaching? It's that the upper father and the upper mother, or the grandfather, grandmother, are locked in a permanent sexual embrace. If we were in North India, this would be like the erotic sculptures, where you see the gods in this huge and very playful kind of sexual encounter. So that is the quality of the Abba and the Ima. They can never be separated. They are never divided. They are never in conflict. They totally balance each other. That is the world before polarity. And one way of looking at them also is to see them as the divine androgyne. So in the Kabbalah is the idea that we all started off androgynous and that we were roly-polies. We were round, half female, half male, and we agreed to separate. So one possibility is that they are the divine androgyne. The other is that they represent the ideal male and female who are not at war with each other. And so that is the mystery of the sacred sexual encounter. And when they are together, they produce what is the missing sphira, that little black and white yin-yang I have up there, that's called da'at, deep knowing. You might remember in the Torah, when Adam and Eve come together, the Torah says they knew each other. They use that terminology. This is supposed to be the source of the deepest knowing. And the other piece of this mystery up there, and possibly the divine androgyne, is that this is supposed to be the reason why we go through life hoping for our better half to show up, so to speak. That we were supposedly sawed apart at the spine or separated at the spine, and that there's some longing for this soul partner that we were with in these other worlds. So the idea is that every being on earth has a partner. And I think that partner could be same sex, opposite sex. I think this is really about polarity, not just about sexuality. So that upper mother, Bina, gives birth. She gives birth to the planets and the stars and the 7 lower Sefirot. And her energy, as it descends into these 7 Sefirot that are what we call Sfirei HaBinyan, the Sefirot that are used to construct our world, then those 7 Sefirot are divided between loving kindness and judgment, between pushing forward motivation and holding back. But ultimately, those Sefirot also have a middle pillar where all of the energies are balanced. And in the middle pillar is the sun, Tiferet, the energy of the young male god, or the young male, and the Shekhinah, the Malchut, the Gaia, the earth. So in the Kabbalistic system, to repeat the heterosexual pattern, the goal of the whole energetic is to bring together the young male and the young female, the brother and the sister. Like human lovers, they have their ups and downs. They're together, they're apart, they are separated from each other. So where the human being comes into the system is that the human being, through good works and charity and prayer and meditation and spiritual sex, is able to reunify the balance of the cosmos within this Kabbalistic molecule. So the idea is there's a sacred marriage that needs to take place, and the human being is the instrument of reuniting, because it is saying that what you do with your life is really capable of healing the basic structure of the cosmos. This is a book called Igeret HaKodesh, the Holy Letter, and it's a Jewish sex manual. And it's usually been attributed to Nachmanides, a great Kabbalistic scholar, wrote this as a letter to a student of his who was getting married. And his basic advice to him was, A, sex is not for procreation alone, which even the Talmud already taught us. And B, that part of his work, particularly since the guy he was talking to was a scholar, was to be in love with his partner and to approach her with tenderness and to speak softly to her and to essentially seduce her in such a way that their lovemaking would be a more total expression of love and spirituality.